come in. Mambo approaching here. This is the buck with the big elephant right in the back there. That's him. Some of the clearer there, so the focus is not so nice as they move in the sunlight. It's also quite bright this afternoon. Fish hunt is kind of standing there, and then we get to Jabulani. Jawud, a lot of the time will take the lead in swimming, so he might be the first one that actually goes in with the competition between him and fish hunt at the moment. He's going to go in first. For elephants, the beauty of being at a waterhole, being in the water, they are naturally buoyant. They produce quite a lot of, obviously, of gas. See Lindy being very, very protective of little Khanyisa. Khanyisa is obviously a surrogate child. She's taken on Khanyisa as her little offspring that she needs to take care of, and that's the main reason for her being overly protective. She doesn't necessarily like Mambo, who's actually her calf. It's her firstborn, little Mambo. But she obviously, her priorities lie with Khanyisa and protecting the Khanyisa. Mambo, unfortunately, he feels quite sorry for himself for kind of getting into the frame there. He's behind the bush, unfortunately. For him, it must be trying times. Up until now, he was the apple of his mother's eye, and now all of a sudden, now there's another elephant that's taken the place. Let's see, Khanyisa's going to hopefully get a bottle now. I've been calling her, obviously, the senior carers, tiger with the skewer hat here, and then obviously God knows behind him. Obviously, for every one of them, this is a change. This is the first orphan that we've introduced into the herd that we've had to give milk out in the bush. That we need to check. For that reason, also for all of them, they need to adapt. They need to change. They need to realize that this is how it's going to happen now. This is how. And obviously, their priorities lie with obviously trying to protect Khanyisa. For them, their main concern is Khanyisa. And all they want to do is they just want to make sure she's tired. She spent the day out in the bush with them. It is a very hot day. It's probably about 28 degrees Celsius today, maybe 26 Celsius. So it's a rather warm day for a winter's day. So see some of the other elephant calves that have come over. This is Kumbura over here. It looks like some might be as well. The rest of the elephants, they couldn't care less. For them, it's all about having fun in the water, floating. Just see somebody's bum at the back there. Obviously, swimming serves two purposes. Firstly, and primarily, the big thing about swimming is that it cools them down. Being a large animal, being a dark colored animal, they do generate quite a lot of body heat moving around during the day. Elephants, with having a very simple stomach system, need to move around because they need to move and eat continuously. For that reason, they do generate quite a lot of body heat. So being able to get to a watering hole like this, or to a dam or a lake, doesn't matter. A lot of the time you'll see them when they approach, the first thing they do is they'll drink a couple of trunks fulls of water, and then they will do with water what you see Lindy doing now with the dust that she throws behind her ears. There's a vast network of veins. Lindy turns her head now, you can actually see it quite nicely, the veins running behind her ears. There we go, I'll try and see if we can get a picture. So the sunlight is extremely bright. You can see a lot of my shake now, trying to send in like that. She what they do is they'll throw water on that network of veins, because what the elephants do is how they regulate, or how they try and regulate their body temperature and how they cool themselves down very, very quickly, is by pumping the blood through their ears. Everybody's seen them walking, fanning their ears, and everybody's kind of heard of how it works. Is as they then fan those ears, that generates a draft or air that moves over the blood. That blood goes directly from there to their brains, which then obviously cools the brain down. And in turn, as their brains cool down, the blood cools down, the body cools down. The second thing, what they do is, you'll see they're all kind of covered in mud, they're all kind of covered in sand. The main purpose for that being that this is when they almost exfoliate. So they'll get in the water. You can see there's one of them actually having a blast there. Let's see, try and see who that is. Might be Fishan, I'm not sure. Once he pokes his head out, we'll have a better sight to see who that is. Anyway, what they do is they cover themselves with the mud. The mud then goes into all those little creases and wrinkles in their skin. That mud won't dry out very quickly, so it helps to keep their body temperature low, so it helps for them to stay cool for a lot longer. What they then do very often, once they've cooled down, is they'll move out of the mud and they'll start throwing sand or dust on themselves, like you can see them doing. So just see if I can get an angle without shaking that much. They will then throw sand and dust and grit, and what that does is they'll move from here to a branch or to a tree or to an anthill, where they will then basically go and rub themselves. Once again, like I said, it's like an exfoliation. That grit and the little pieces of sand that's stuck in the mud will help them to rub and scratch their skin. The other thing that it does, and it also, the mud will trap any kinds of parasites that's sitting on their skin, ticks or lice or bot flies, anything that might be sitting on the skin that might be parasitizing off of the skin, will get stuck in the mud there. And that mud will then, as they move around, will dry out and it will eventually fall off, but then the parasite is stuck in the mud will then be stuck in the mud and will fall off with it. So it's a very important part of elephants' behaviour, being able to have access to water like this. You'll see this little elephant there, she kind of dug out some mud from way down below, and then she'll bring that up to the surface. Now she's just kind of playing with it, see how she's going to throw that all over her. Two reasons for that. First of all, it's very cool, being that it's not been exposed to the sun for most part of the day. Secondly, it's a lot smoother than any of the other mud that you might find on the sun. There's not as much rocks and cracks and stuff in there, and it helps to actually go into her skin a lot quicker and a lot faster, or into the creases of the skin rather than the skin itself. To see a lot of the time, they will, as you can see her doing there, defecate in the water. She's not being rude in any way. The main purpose for her doing that is actually, it's how elephants regulate the bacteria that's in their stomach. So by her leaving her dung in the water, she's actually populating the water with the stomach bacteria for elephants, for other elephants, for herself. Any other elephant that would get close to her, drink close enough to potentially pick up some of that stomach flora. And very often, if you study young calves, baby elephants for a while, you see that very often, as soon as their mother defecates, as soon as she leaves fresh dung balls, they'll run up and they'll eat that. Very often, if you study young calves, baby elephants for a while, you see that very often, as soon as their mother defecates, as soon as she leaves fresh dung balls, they'll run up and they'll eat that. Main reason being to get that stomach flora right. To get the bacteria within the stomach that helps with the digestion, or their digestive system, to get that to the right consistency, right amount, variety of different bacteria that you can find. That's also why if you followed Jabulani for a while and you followed Khanyisa's story for a while, very often we refer to, in layman's terms, shit shakes, which is basically elephant dung that we then collect, fresh dung that we collect. We steep it in water and we basically mix it into Khanyisa's milk on a regular basis, but also just when her stomach was potentially upset, you could just feed her some of that dung water and that very often helps very quickly to settle her stomach, and it's just a added dose of stomach flora, stomach bacteria that helps to get her digestive system back on track. If you're a lazy elephant, you can see Fisham is the guy in the middle there, lying on his side. You don't feel like throwing yourself and covering yourself with mud. All you need to do is just kind of lie on your side and wait for your body temperature to reach the ambient temperature of the water around you. It's also interesting if you note that, Somapani, that's been standing on the side there all to himself, he was almost one of the first ones approaching the water, but he very rarely actually goes in. He's a more sophisticated elephant. He doesn't bother himself with fooling around in the mud. He's also one of our older elephants that we have. And he very often will just kind of hang out on the side, almost like a protector. He's a guy that just watches everybody and sees that everybody's still doing okay. Very rarely will you see him venturing in and doing what these guys are doing just over there. Obviously, being a small elephant and lying next to one of the bigger bulls when they're splashing, the byproduct is that your whole body gets covered. Once again, not as much energy that you need to save, not as much work that you have to do to get your body temperature down. Swing back lastly just to quickly see Khanyisa still hanging around with the females over there, never really interested in her bottle. She'll maybe once they're done all the excitement's over from swimming, she might be more interested in having a lunch. I'm just going to do one last little pan over here. See all of them kind of splaying, splashing, fooling around, just being their happy selves. Like I said earlier, being naturally buoyant, this is about the only time in an elephant's life that they're almost weightless. There's not really enough water in the dam for them to really properly swim. If the water bodies are much deeper, you will actually see them completely submerged, and their trunk sticking out like a little snorkel to be able to breathe. And they'll play around in that mud for a while, in the water for a while, and then slowly but surely you'll see that they will kind of make their way out to the side of them. Very often when you watch baby elephants, you also see that they do play around, and they will try and jump on top of one another, they'll try to push one another over. As they get older, they lose a lot of that boisterousness because it's just too much effort, it's too big, their bodies are too big, they're too strong, it's too difficult. As they mature, they lose that, but once they reach a water body, once they get to a watering hole like this, very often those old games will come back. Kind of play, and it's also a way of asserting dominance. Very often you'll see young bulls play like this. They do what we call mock mating, so they will mount up on top of one another. It's not the actual act of mating, that's more showing that I'm more powerful than you, or more powerful than you rather, sorry, and I have the ability to, I won't say mount, but I'll climb on top of you and I can overthrow you. It's a good old bump scratch on a ledge, always fun. Obviously you're not having hands and fingers and toes in the true sense of the word. It's very difficult to scratch certain parts of your body, so when you do find a ledge or a rock or a piece of sandbank like that that's relatively rough, it might not be the most sophisticated thing to do, might not be the nicest, the most beautiful thing that you can do, but it serves its purpose in getting into all those funny nooks and corners. See how they're throwing themselves with the sand and the dust now. Fish and Ruby. Fish being the big boy in the back. Maybe to the left there. This buck is also not completely submerged. You can just see his head sticking facing us. And thank you once again for joining us, checking in with the elephant herd as they come and do their afternoon swim, play and so on. We're going to just kind of let them settle in and do their thing, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much.